Welcome to the Box Score Sports Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Box Score Sports YouTube channel. On this clip, we're going to talk about the trade for DeMar DeRozan. The Kings got DeMar DeRozan. The Bulls receive Chris Duarte, 2 second-round picks and cash. And the Spurs receive Harrison Barnes and a 2031 unprotected pick swap from the Kings. And I'm going to go ahead and hit on each angle, tell you, and give kind of a grade for each team that was involved in this trade. Now, before I get into my thoughts, let me know in the comments down below, what were your thoughts on this trade for each team? Maybe pick a team, tell me what you think, and what your grade is for each team in this trade. Now, let's start with the Kings side of it because they got an all-star. What I like is that DeMar DeRozan is going to help any team's half-court offense. He can play make, he can shoot, he can create his own shot. He's able to make even tough shots and tough shots in the clutch. Now, if you were going to tell me the one thing that the Kings needed, it wouldn't be DeMar DeRozan, but it doesn't hurt to have DeMar DeRozan. You know what I'm saying? And I really like that the Kings are doing that, is they're trying to go out and they're trying to get better. They're not trying to stay stagnant. They're trying to make moves, and they're trying to compete in a tough Western Conference that is super deep. And this move will help them do that a little bit, right? And I'll talk about that in a second. But a veteran player, I think, even though the spacing might be something to be concerned about if you're the Kings, smart players, good players, they figure it out. So Fox, Sabonis, and DeMar, they're going to figure this out as far as what's going to be the best way that they're going to run that offense with the coach, obviously. I'm not saying like it's just on them three, but it's really up to the players on the floor to provide that floor spacing, which kind of is a little bit of a con here, is that the floor spacing, when you think of like where Fox likes to live, DeRozan, and Sabonis, they're kind of closer to the basket type of players. So because of that, it kind of is a weird fit, but I like that the Kings are trying something, and I like that that DeRozan's going to provide half-court offense for this team, along with De'Aaron Fox, who provides half-court offense for this team. And he's also clutch. We know he can make good, tough shots down the stretch, which is kind of what you need during playoff time, right? The big con in this trade, though, and I'm gonna just say I'm gonna give the Kings a B in this trade, a B. I'm giving them a B because they're going for it. Adding an all-star to your team is never a bad idea, especially like we'll talk. You know, they only gave up really Harrison Barnes. And so Keegan Murray will now have a place on that roster as a starter. I believe that's why they did it. But the thing that I struggle with is, again, I love that they're going for it, but it's not a huge ceiling raiser for the Kings. It's a floor. It raises their floor a little bit, I think, but their ceiling, I don't think, goes that far up. And what I mean by that is I really don't think they're in the first class of teams in the West. And that's what your goal is to do. And there's kind of a middle tier of teams, which I kind of want to do. Maybe me and Clint will do it, or someone, where we'll do a tiers of the West and tiers of the East so far after this offseason. And to me, the Kings are probably in the second or third tier. They would be like with the Pelicans, in my opinion, and the Clippers. They would kind of be in that tier of teams, and like they would be behind the big four. They'd be behind Memphis if Ja's healthy. I think we all forget how good Memphis was 2 years ago, and because of that, they're like going to be somewhere between 6 and 10. And so it's not like they can't make more moves, and that's why I kind of want to be positive about this, because this could be a step into a direction where they can make another move towards the trade deadline. Maybe other stars could become available, and they didn't trade a whole lot, so they have assets to trade. But DeMar himself is not going to raise the ceiling for the Kings to make them legitimate contenders in the West. Okay, so that's where I'm at. The Kings, I have them at a B. Let's talk about the Bulls. The Bulls got Chris Duarte and 2 second-round picks. I kind of always liked Chris Duarte. He's a fine player. He didn't get a lot of minutes last year. His three-point percentage did go up last year, though, from the year before. He shot 36% 2 years ago. Last year was 31, and this past year was 34. So it went up this last year. And so I like it as far as like, hey, let's take a chance on this guy. He's still what? He's 27. He came out young, didn't he? Yeah, 21. So he came out kind of young. He's been in the league for what, 3-4 years? 3 years, only 3. So he was 24 when he came in the league, and this is why, like with Dalton Connect, this is why teams don't really draft players that are older because they're kind of a finished product. But he's only 27, so who knows? There might be another story to his career where maybe he can reinvent himself and become a little bit more of a solid role player where he's getting more than 12 minutes a game. But again, we'll see. On the Bulls is a good start, though, because it looks like the Bulls are resetting, which is why I'm going to give the Bulls a B-. Chris Duarte is fine. He's 27. You can play him, see if there's anything there, but really you open up the space for Kobe White and you open up the space for Josh Giddey because you want to really build around those two guys. That's what their plan is. I'm not saying it's going to work or if it's right or wrong, but that's what their plan is. So if you have Chris Duarte, he's not going to take minutes away from those guys. Someone like DeRozan is. They're not going to take the ball away from those two guys. Someone like DeRozan is, and he could be more of a role player in that offense with Giddey and Kobe White and Patrick Williams, because I'm assuming they will still end up getting rid of Levine somehow. The 2 second-round picks is the biggest reason why I have them at a B-. Is I think so you got to knock them because at the trade deadline, not making moves with these guys, whether it's Alex Caruso or DeRozan, and not getting more value for them. So you got to knock them for that. But in this trade itself, 2 second-round picks, we're going to see a value with them with the second apron. We see that more teams are trying to get second-round picks, especially when they're getting up to or at the second apron of the salary cap. So I think more and more of those second-round picks are going to become more and more valuable to those teams. So like the Nuggets, the Timberwolves, OKC, the Boston Celtics, those types of teams are going to be begging for second-round picks, and especially someone like the OKC, because they have so many young guys that they want to re-sign and a lot of first-round picks still. So they might be able to, the Bulls with their second-round picks, they might be able to turn 2 second-round picks into a first-round pick because OKC can't afford to have another first-round pick on their team, stuff like that. So it makes it's a good trade in that aspect. They did lose out, obviously, on some value because of what happened at the trade deadline, not trading these guys, and I think they need to be docked for that. So I'm gonna, again, Bulls B-, maybe C+. It's a fine trade. 2 second-round picks are more valuable than what they used to be, so it makes sense. Chris Duarte, 27 years old. We'll see if he can redefine his career a little bit. And like I said, I always liked Chris Duarte, so we'll see what happens. Finally, the Spurs. The Spurs get Harrison Barnes and a 2031 unprotected pick swap. And let me tell you what, I think so. I did not, full disclosure, on our podcast, we gave draft day winners and losers. I had the Spurs not necessarily be a loser, but the transaction with the Timberwolves, I felt like was a loser transaction because it's way too far out to help Wembanyama. Like Anthony Edwards is going to be 28, 29 when those picks come into play. And if he's on the Wolves are going to be good. So I didn't care for that trade. This trade I actually like. Again, 2031, it's unprotected pick swap with the Kings. You have Victor Wembanyama. The chances of you being a bad team in 2031 is very, very slim if you keep Victor on your team. So the Kings pick will probably be a better pick than what you have, and it's unprotected. So if the Kings, might have to blow it up when they realize their team is not in the first or even the second tier of teams possibly. So it would be like, okay, well, maybe in 2027, they decide to like rebuild. The rebuild is a little bit of a struggle bus. You get a high pick with that 2031 pick. But also, even if they don't, use that pick. It's another asset that they can make a big trade for. I know they were interested in Lauri Markkanen. It sounds like those type of trade talks have died down here recently with Lauri Markkanen with every team. But if Lauri Markkanen becomes available, they have another asset. They now have 3 first-round picks, 2031, 2032. They have 3 total in those years, and plus their own picks that they can use, except this is not an additional pick. They just get the better of the picks, which I think like a team like the Jazz would value. Not only that, but they add Harrison Barnes. So think of the like potential starting lineup for, I mean, like Devin Vassell is still on the team, but you could be like, okay, you got Chris Paul, you got Devin Vassell, you got Castle now, you got Harrison Barnes, and you got Sohan, and now you got Victor. I mean, that is a interesting team. I think the Spurs are going to win like 40 games this year because of Victor. They're going to get like close, if not better, and they added Chris Paul. It's going to be an amazing. I think it's going to be a big jump for the Spurs this year. That's what I think. And I give their trade, getting a veteran, 32 years old, shot 38% from 3 last year, Harrison Barnes. He cares on defense. Sohan cares on defense. Castle cares on defense. And Victor cares on defense. I just really think that this team is going to be pretty solid next year. It's not going to be like a home run hitting type of team. Now, could they make another trade to become that type of team? Absolutely. But right now, I think what they have done, they have now made a team that's going to be a competitive team around Victor Wembanyama, and they will be playing for a play-in team. And it's so funny because I think like you're going to see, and one of my big prediction when it comes to Western Conference is you're going to see some of the teams that are like veteran teams with older players on their team. And when I mean like the Clippers and maybe even the Suns, they're going to blow things up a little bit because they got to start, they're not going to be able to compete with the top 10, the top tier, I should say, of the West, and they're not going to be able to compete with the second tier in the West. So they're going to blow things up, and then the Spurs can come in and grab somebody if they need to in that moment. So, obviously that's projection, but just in this trade, I really like the Spurs. I really like what the Spurs did. I give them the A. Okay, that's my grade. So again, I have the Kings with a B, the Bulls with a B-, and the Spurs with an A. Let me know in the comments down below what you grade each team. I think there's some pros and cons to every single transaction except the Spurs. I think that was just a win to be involved in that trade. And like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed, and we will talk to you guys soon. Thanks so much for watching this clip of the Box Score Sports Podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to our channel. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter or X. And we'll talk to you guys real soon. See ya.